I'm going to lecture you. I'm going to stand and deliver and show you my PowerPoint slide deck for an hour. That's not training, that's presenting. Or what we do is we say, okay, I'm going to train you to be a subject matter expert in this thing, which is the assumption that in order to be a good trainer, you just have to know the stuff. Early on, when I am trying to answer the question, is training necessary? One of the first things I'll do is a performance gap. So that's where it's this onerous, this idea of like, bureaucracy. You're making me tick boxes. You're making me do things that don't actually help me, that get in my way.
With me today is Marci Araki. She is the Chief Learning Officer at Clearest Course. She helps companies align learning strategies with businesses and performance needs. This is our part 2 because we started talking about training. We started talking about culture and all these things that are happening in training modules and whatnot, and feels like we left it unfinished. So here we are for part number 2. Marci, how are you feeling today?
Excellent. Really excited to be back with you. We have so much to talk about.
Right. Now, a couple of points that I have here written down that I want to go over that I think we didn't spend enough time last time. Let's start with the training stuff. We all keep introducing trainings.
Yeah.
What is training?
That is an excellent question. The way that I learned it is training is about supporting people with knowledge and skills to do a job. It might be easier to think about what training isn't, and the way that I learned it is, quite simply, if you put a gun to a person's head and say, do this, if a person can do it, they don't need training.
Right. So what happens in that situation? What is that misconcept that we have that what training is, what training isn't?
That's great, because the way to look at it, an easy framework to look at it is, anytime I'm on the job and I'm being asked to do something, there's me as the person doing the job, and then there's also the organization. And those two levels work together. What the organization does and provides to make sure I can do my job, and what I bring to the table to make sure I can do my job. Training is really focused just on the individual. So it's really just focused on me and the knowledge and skills that I have to do my job. Most of the time that people can't do their job, most of the time that people struggle, they make mistakes, they're confused. 70% of the time, it's not because of training. That's what a lot of the research shows. A lot of the research shows that, in fact, it's at that organizational level. And that is not something that training can help you with.
Now, spend some time and in detail explain what do you mean by that organizational level, the systems and processes, the SOPs?
Exactly. There's maybe 3 sort of categories that we can think about. So one of them is, I would say the number one reason maybe why people struggle on the job is it's information. So we're not given feedback on how we're doing. We're not being told when we're doing something well or when we need help, information. We maybe actually don't even know the scope of our job and responsibilities. So that goes down to things like job descriptions. Feedback goes down to things like the organizational structure. I've been in situations where my manager wasn't able to give me really good feedback because I was actually not on the right team, honestly. So that type of information, policies, procedures, standards. The other category of information what organizations can provide are things like the tools, the technology, the resources. That goes to things like, I'm working from home and you've given me a tablet or a laptop. Do I have a fast enough laptop to do the job? Do I have the programs required? Do I have the resources, the tools, that environment? That's the other category. And the third one is really to do with motivation. So that honestly comes down to, are you compensating me well enough for what you're asking me to do? There's that match, because that's where that match comes with the individual. Do I feel supported? Do I feel, quite honestly, that I'm being compensated? Does the organization feel that they're getting what they want out of me? So that compensation, that motivation, that's where you're looking for that nice match between people in the organization. It's where we say things like, oh, it's a good fit. We're a good fit. That's what we're looking for, that category.
So it's it's not shying away from the fact that fair compensation is one of the information, lack of information or motivator as well. When it comes to, instead of throwing more trainings, you need to look at yourself and you need to look at the individual that you're hiring, the conversations and all that, calling it a good fit, meaning the compensation is there, they are happy with it, and then everything will continue from this point forward.
Exactly. You could almost think of it too as the organizational part is more like, I see it sometimes as the umbrella. It's all of those pieces are in place. I go into a role, I feel like this is a good fit for me. There's alignment between what I want to do and what the organization's goals are. I feel there's a fit with our values. I'm compensated well. I want to stay here. I like the work. I know what my job is. I'm getting really good feedback. If all of those things are in place organizationally, then you come down to me. Then you come down to, as an individual, am I getting feedback? Am I happy there? Knowledge and skills, that might be the one bucket that training fits into, which is, do I have the knowledge and skills to do what's asked of me? And that can change over time. I stay in an organization for years and years, and changes happen. New business processes come along, new systems come along. Absolutely, I need to be trained on those things. But training can't help if I'm not getting feedback, for example.
It sounds like you're saying, training is used when you need to share knowledge and improve or introduce skills to someone, but training doesn't fix the motivators. These are organizational things that you need to have in place so that you see the productivity going higher and higher within your company.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And if we're looking at these organizational levels, why training won't fix a broken process?
Exactly. That is on the organizational level. So let's take any process. It could be, a lot of companies have processes on maybe submitting expense reports. That's fairly common. If there are problems with the process, so it's not clear who approves things. there are usually categories that need to be filled out on an expense report, cost centers. If the process is broken around what I need to fill in, who gets things, timeliness, training me isn't going to help that. What can happen with more complex processes, say that involve multiple teams, the downside of that is where people will come up with workarounds. So sometimes it's like, well, we know this doesn't work. We know this system doesn't talk to this system. We know that there's communication breakdowns. So what happens is that people will come up with their own workarounds. And then what happens from there is that you end up with inconsistency. Instead of having a nice straight process of this person does this, and then it goes to here, and then it goes to here, everyone follows the same process. There's training, there's documentation, it's consistent. It ends up as looking like, maybe a feather. There's just slight branches coming up all the time of different ways that people do things. You may all get to the same endpoint, but if you're striving for consistency, if you're striving for scalability, that inconsistency and those workarounds are really harmful.
What happens if you're noticing a workaround, and let's say now that I'm looking at this from a different lens, it sounds like a leader will notice a workaround and they throw a training module at it as opposed to fixing a problem to stop the workaround.
Exactly. And I would say it's one of these assumptions about training, in that, going back to our earlier statement, we assume that sometimes if a person is struggling, if I'm making mistakes, it's because I don't know how to do it. It's because I don't have that knowledge and skills. So by default, we say things like, oh, you need more training. You need more information. And that's really what we're saying by you need more training, is I'm just going to give you more information. I'm assuming that maybe you need more information about a system or a tool. And then and that's so common that training has become a little bit synonymous with, how to put it bluntly, shoveling a lot of content at people.
Now, if let's say we go down this path, we understand that this is not the right way. When do you introduce training the right way? When does it actually support people?
Training supports people when we'll look at it early on when I am trying to answer the question, is training necessary? One of the first things I'll do is a performance gap. So we'll look at, what is that vision of success that a team or the business is striving for? What is that ideal? So that's the future, that's the vision. And then the next thing I'm going to look at is, what is our starting point? What are people currently doing? And then there you have that gap between what are people currently doing and what do we really want them to do? I'll look at what that path is. And this is where I'll bring in that idea of the organizational impacts and then the individual impacts. And I'll basically lay that out along the path and say, what part of that path from our current state to our desired state am I gonna get to with knowledge and skills? What part of that path am I gonna fill because people don't have the knowledge and skills to do something? That's when I'll look at it. That's when I'll look at it and say, okay, people need training. People need, it's something new. That's maybe the easiest scenario, is when a business honestly is saying, we have a new process for doing this. Rolling out new pieces of software is really common right now. So, okay, we're rolling out a new piece of software. There's a new way that everyone is going to get their paychecks, and there's a new process for payroll to complete their payroll. We create training for people on that. Yeah.
When you're introducing a new software or when you're introducing a new process, that's when training happens. And to me, it sounds like if it's not accepted or adopted, then it's something else. The process might be broken.
Yeah, and let's take that example and let's sort of follow it down the path. So, new payroll system, great. I train my payroll staff. I might have some information and a bit of training for maybe employees on like, well, you're going to have to go somewhere else to get your pay stub now. Perfect. We've got training for that. 3 months later, maybe, people aren't getting their pay. There's complaints maybe that there's delays. And so we take a look back at that again and say, okay, well, what's going on? That there are some mistakes happening. And then we're going to look at it and say, is it because the process is broken? Is it because some part of the process is unclear for people? So what we start doing then is saying, well, what's the cause of those errors? And it's not necessarily why are people making mistakes. It's like, why are people not getting their paychecks on time? That could be because of the system. It could be because of the process. It could be because of the people. But that's really where I'll look at that and say, what's going on? Back it up and say, what's the cause of that? The last thing I want to do is to assume people aren't getting paid because people aren't following a process and throw more training at my payroll department. If in that example, maybe there's a process issue, maybe there's a technical glitch that needs to be fixed. If I throw more training at my payroll team when they're following the training and they know that they're having system problems, the downside of that is they might feel like they're being punished. They might feel like being asked to take more training is a waste of time. And I've been in that position before on the job where you feel like, I already know how to do this. I know that maybe there's other factors, that are causing me to not be able to, to complete things on time. And when people throw more training at you because they assume that you don't know how to do it, it can be a huge demotivator.
Let's look at that side. Let's look at the demotivator. Let's look at when is training actually harmful?
Yeah, and that actually happens. So we'll look at that example. I said that I went through that. I mean, the example that I had is that I was working on a team. We were missing deadlines, and it was an administrative services teams, and we had to print out a lot of color transparencies, high colored jobs. We were missing deadlines. We were asked to take advanced printer training. We were outraged. We already knew, we had an idea of why the mistakes were happening, but I remember that feeling of being insulted. Like, you don't trust me? You don't think that I know how to do my job? That was the feeling we all had. Our manager had no idea that we were feeling that way until I told her. And I basically asked her, I said, give me 2 days. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why this is happening. So I took my 2 days. I talked to people involved. I talked to my coworkers. I walked through the process again. I talked to our customers. And as it turned out, deadlines were missed because, number one, communication. we weren't communicating well enough to our partners about our timelines for producing their work. So we weren't getting their materials in time. Once we fixed that, we had a nice little one-pager on timelines and how to work with us. We found out that the shared color printer we're using, the administrators on the other team were canceling our jobs without telling us because they didn't know whose they were. They weren't theirs. They were getting in their way, so they canceled. So that was a process issue. I mean, it was a simple thing about a printer, a shared printer, but I can't overemphasize how it made us feel. You don't trust me. You don't think I'm good at my job. You're jumping to conclusions before you even ask me. It made us feel that the organization didn't have our back. And that's the harm. That's the motivational harm that can come when the assumption is made that you don't know how to do something and you need more training.
It's this process where you have to talk with your team, see what the process is, what the problem is, because otherwise it feels like you're lashing out and you're just saying you don't know what you're doing, just do more training. It feels like you are making assumptions about someone's skills and knowledge because the performance is not there, where the performance might not be there because of processes, because of other things, and saying take more training, it will impact the process even more, performance will go down even more.
Exactly. You've hit on something so important there across all of the work that a trainer does, which is making assumptions. Making assumptions right from the very start, right down to, how it impacts people. It's so natural, and we do it all the time. And I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I still catch myself at various times making assumptions about what people should be doing, about the type of training or support they need, about why things are happening. And it happens all the way down the line. Like you said, it's just, I think it's the opposite, or it goes hand in hand with this idea of curiosity. Because you also hit on that, which is, we don't ask questions. Oh, if you just asked me, I would have told you. It sounds so simple, but as I said, I know it's not.
I've introduced more of a, it's where I've heard it, but I like the idea. So I've introduced this concept of it costs nothing to ask, but if you don't ask, it can cost you a client.
Exactly. If you don't find out more information, if you don't ask for help, if you don't ask me for help, I can't help you. I don't know how you're struggling. Exactly. There's all sorts of ways that we make assumptions and we don't ask things.
Now, someone that will make an assumption on this one, that might ask the least is the person that is responsible for the training. Sometimes the person that is the training or the leader will feel that as maybe a weakness, so they will not want to get training themselves or any consulting or coaching. How do you go about working with those people, training the trainers at the end of the day?
A train the trainer is really interesting because, like you touched on one thing, which is the motivation and the coaching. But really what's happening with train the trainer programs is we always say, you're really good at your job. You're a manager. We want you to be responsible for training people. And a lot of times they're structured as these, 1 or 2 day workshops or courses. But what happens consistently across corporate train the trainer programs is that the outcome is that people aren't prepared to train other people. we call them train the trainer programs, but really what's happening is we're training people how to present information, as in, I'm going to tell you a lot of things. I'm going to lecture you. I'm going to stand and deliver and show you my PowerPoint slide deck for an hour. That's not training, that's presenting. Or what we do is we say, okay, I'm going to train you to be a subject matter expert in this thing, which is the assumption that in order to be a good trainer, you just have to know the stuff. If you're knowledgeable about the piece of software, how to fill out a form, I don't know, how to build a car, if you already know how to do it, you should be able to train people. And so that's what happens, is that we think that we're training people to be trainers. We're missing the mark on both ends. And by doing so, what we're missing is, well, what does a trainer actually do? If it's not present information, if it's not about the knowledge inside of our heads, our expertise, then what is it? And that goes to your first point, which is it's about creating change. It's about helping people do something differently. That's where it brings in this idea of like the relationship. It's a two-way conversation. Presenting is all one way. Like I laughed and I said, presenting, it's the stand and deliver. I'm at my podium, I got my slide deck. I don't really care if you ask questions. I may ask you, does anyone have any questions? But that's in the last 5 minutes of me talking for 50 minutes. That's not training. Training is two-way. Training is about the conversation. Training is about giving and receiving feedback. It's about the structure to make sure that not only am I telling you to do something, that I'm working with you to make sure that you understand why. That you have the confidence to do it. That's where coaching and training comes in. I'm looking at you as the person or the people saying, hey, I want to make sure that you know why you're being asked to do something, that you know how to do it, you know how it fits into your job, that you feel confident moving forward and being able to do this on your own, that I'm giving you the right kind of feedback. That's a lot of the training. That's what we're not doing in Train the Trainer programs. And that's where a lot of teams struggle, because we default to this idea of, I'm gonna throw information at you, and then some magic happens inside your head, and you're gonna be able to take all that information and apply it.
What happens when someone says, Marci, I've been through your Train the Trainers program, and I'm trying to change people in our company. I'm showing them the why and how it fits in their job. And when I try to have this conversation dialogue, I get nothing from the other side. I have to call volunteers. It feels like a struggle. What is wrong in that process? Am I doing something wrong? Is this normal? How do I overcome where I have the other side being actually engaged and not really like this? I feel like no one wants to do this with me.
I think that's pretty common, because my fear and what I've seen is that a lot of workplace training is pretty passive. It can be pretty passive. So there's this assumption that as someone being trained, I go into a class, whether virtual or, and I just have to sit and listen and take notes. So in cases where you really do want that, the real training, the interactivity, part of it is going to be setting the expectations about what you're going to be expected to do. What is actually going to happen in this training? So yeah, it is. There's part of it is the structure of communicating to people what they're going to get. you know, by the end of the session, you'll be able to do these things. And communicating to people the expectations for that particular session.
It's starting from the place of guys, today we'll go over the payroll, whatever we have. Just let you know, you will be logging in, you'll be doing this, you will actually submit a fake one, and you need to hit the email to see the thing coming through. By the way, we might do a demo one with like $50 just to make sure that everything works. So have your computer ready. This is stuff like that, right? It's setting the tone of what will the training be, and then by the end of it, you should be able to submit your pay. Payday is in 3 days from now, so you should be able to do it with no problem.
Exactly. You set the expectation with, and I've been in exactly these kind of training where I try to prepare people saying, you know, this is going to be hands-on. I'm going to do maybe a short demo. We're going to walk through this together. We're all going to do this together. I'm going to walk through it. We'll do it together. We can make sure that you get to the end. I'm going to give you some time to practice.
No.
Because a training session, especially for something hands-on like that, people need time to practice. People need time to, internalize it, to find their own way. That's the way I'd structure that. I'm going to give you time to practice. Then we're going to look at a slightly different example. Now that you got the basics, we're going to look at a slightly more complex example.
There we go. Now, my question was more on playing this devil advocate, because I want to portray the reality where sometimes you do go in a difficult situation and you have a lot of pushback. An easy example, I have a client, we joke about this all the time. They help companies implement Microsoft Copilot. No one likes Microsoft Copilot. It is part of their Microsoft 365 license. It is included. They want to maximize it, but people just don't like Microsoft Copilot. So he has a whole training stuff. What do you do if someone brings you into a company and, hey, we bought this thing, no one likes it, people are not adopting it, it's not the training, it is not the process, it is a very straightforward process. We haven't found any issues. People just don't want to do it. I have no idea why. Maybe I'm making assumptions. I think that's the theme of this conversation. Maybe I'm making some assumptions. What can I do when no one wants to adopt my new process?
Well, yeah, that happens. It's interesting because there's a branch early on, which is, are you forcing people or are you giving people a choice not to use it? Because that's one thing where sometimes if you give people a choice not to use it, they're not going to. So you see that in terms of like people aren't adopting it. They're going back to the old way. Versus the other way, which is we're moving on. You can't use the old thing. We're all in on Copilot. One of the things that I'd probably look at early on, if I'm meeting that kind of resistance, is you want to find out why. Like, why is it that people don't want to use it? You want to actually find, like when I talked about that future state scenario, that idea of success, like, how does the company think they're going to help people using Copilot versus how do people think that it's going to help them do their jobs? There might be a mismatch in right there, which is the company thinks, hey, this tool is going to make you better and faster and stronger, and people are like, nah. I got another way of doing it. Copilot is clunky. I do things and I just have to figure things out again afterwards. It just makes things longer. Those are the kind of scenarios that I want to figure out, because sometimes the more you listen to people and find out, like, where is this resistance coming from? What are they trying to do that Copilot isn't helping them? Maybe there's something that we can change about how we're implementing Copilot. Maybe we're not using it for the things that we think it's going to be most helpful at. Maybe it's going to be more helpful doing other things. So that is one of the things that I would think of when you're meeting a lot of resistance. Is like the first step is, if sometimes if people are really upset, like, I'm going to ask you questions and I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to find out why. I may not be able to help you. I may not be able to solve your problem. I may not be able to prevent the business from rolling this out. But sometimes just listening to people and figuring out where is this resistance coming from?
If let's say we're going through this new software or process, we've adopted it, we're going in the whole thing, and now we're getting to some structure. We need to have SOPs, guidance, policies, some governance. How do we properly set it up so it doesn't feel there is too much bureaucracy? I just need to click send on an email. I need to check whether they're legal. I need to check all these. How do you set up governance so that it doesn't feel there's too much red tape?
That's a good question, because a lot of times it does. If a policy is working, it really should be seamless. Like, you shouldn't notice it. It shouldn't be a barrier. And the idea of a policy, or the idea of a process, that nice, consistent way, if you've talked to people and you've really figured out who does what, and it makes sense, then me as someone, like, I'm not going to notice that it's there. I may have to go back and check and say, okay, what are the standards? This is a different case. I need to know, like, what to do now. But they're there to support people. It's there to provide the boundaries, to provide the swimming pool, the playground. It's there to provide the boundaries so everyone can do things in the same way and meet the same goal. That's where it helps, because the boundaries help people. The boundaries help to make sure that things are done consistently, effectively. And that, into my mind, actually is where the creativity can sort of blossom from there. But where it doesn't work is where it interferes with my ability to do my job. You've created too many steps. There's things you're asking me to do that don't make sense. I'm being asked to follow a procedure that actually isn't applicable to my job. So that's where it's this onerous, this idea of like, bureaucracy. You're making me tick boxes. You're making me do things that don't actually help me, that get in my way. That's where it's harmful. I think that's where it has this bad rap of so many times it's like, governance and policy and bureaucracy. It doesn't need to be a bad thing.
When you're looking for the right approach, you said it shouldn't even feel like it's there. To me, it sounds like going to the top of a conversation, that when people start to create workarounds, someone might come up with some sort of a policy to prevent the workaround, as opposed to finding the problem and solving the process. Are governance used in that kind of connotation, where they're trying to prevent something to veer off without addressing the actual process issues?
In that situation, I would say that if you've got workarounds, if you've got people doing things differently, the last thing you want to do is document a workaround and have that become part of your established way of doing things, which can happen. You really do want to back up and say, hey, how do we fix this? How do we fix this? Workarounds are a sign that something isn't working. It's a sign that something isn't working, or it's a sign that someone may have figured out a better way to do things, which is great, and you want to celebrate and encourage that. I've seen that happen before, where sometimes, you're the fresh set of eyes, you come in and you're like, we don't need to do that. We can eliminate 3 steps and just do this. That's fantastic. But what you want to do is, number one, you don't want to document your workarounds. You don't want to have your workarounds become policy or become your procedure. That's a sign that something isn't working. You really want to back up and say, hey, how do we make this better? And then you kind of, then you write it down. Then it becomes part of like your standard operating procedure. Then it becomes part of your documentation.
Um, as we're getting close to the end, Marci, is there something that we should have covered but we didn't?
I think we've kind of spanned a lot of the issues that, when we talk a lot, we talk about, for me, the core of it is what is training and what training isn't. Workplace training, there's so much training that we produce that's not necessary. There's so much, like you've said that as well. There's so many assumptions that we make about what training is. We need to throw lots of stuff at people.
Mm-hmm.
If there's mistakes, if people are confused, I'm going to throw more stuff at them. I'm going to throw more documentation, more training, more mandatory e-learning. And so often we lean into this idea that if people know things, if I give them more slides and more training, it's going to help them. But this is the critical point with training as well, where I talked about with practice. Just because I know something doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to do it. Like, we probably know that a lot ourselves, right? Sure, I know what to do. Am I going to be able to do it? On my own? Without feedback? Don't know about that. And that's where training falls down as well. We throw things at people. So much information. So much information, sometimes it's confusing. And then we expect this magic to happen and people to be like, oh yeah, I can apply that. I know how to do it. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen all the time.
Right. This 20-page slide. Thank you so much. I really was looking forward to reading all weekend to get ready for Monday for our training session again.
Exactly. And then, and I've seen this, your 20-page slide deck. The critical information for me in my role is buried on slide 10. But maybe your 20-page slide deck is designed for like 3 different roles, 3 different people, I don't need 3/4 of it. And you could say, yeah, I gave you the information, it's right there. But when I need it, it's like, oh, is it in this slide deck, this one, or is it in this manual? Where do I find it? Oh, how do I know that I need to go to slide 20 to find the one bit of information that I need? That's where we drown people in so much training. We just make it so hard for people to find what they need when they need it.
Right. Marci, someone listens to this whole thing and they are very interested and they're like, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm doing things in a very wrong way, but I want to change. I want to learn a little bit more. How do people get a hold of you to work with you?
You can send me a message on LinkedIn. Absolutely. I'd love to hear from you. I'm really passionate about this because I see how workplaces struggle with training. I've seen just the money wasted, the investment in training wasted because it's not necessary. So please, if you have any questions, if you want to have a chat, send me a message on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Marci, thank you so much for the time today, and I wish you all the success.
Thank you so much, Zivko. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.